Hello, welcome everybody. Today we will be talking with a veterinarian. We have Dr. Joy Dillon joining us today to tell us a little bit about her job and what it means to her. And I think we'll just start off with asking her, what is it like to be a veterinarian and what is your job like?
Hi, thanks for having me. Um, Being a veterinarian is exciting. You never know what you're going to see that day. It depends on what type of animals you work with. I personally work with small animals, which is dogs and cats, sometimes an occasional hamster, a rabbit or so. But typically, I work in a hospital, and so my patients come to me, whereas like large animal veterinarians go out to farm calls. So I get to see plenty of pets all day and, of course, all their owners, and it's great fun.
How did you choose to be a veterinarian for small animals?
Well, I've always loved dogs and cats. I'm probably more of a dog person than a cat, but they're starting to grow on me, of course. But always loved animals, and I love humans. So it's a great way to combine the two, because the greatest misconception is people think, oh, I only love animals. I don't like people. I'm only going to work with animals. But you work with people a lot, because those are the owners who you talk to, figure out what's going on with their pets. So you definitely have to love both. And it's a great way to combine your love for both of them.
How would you describe your typical day?
So it depends on if I'm just seeing appointments or doing surgery that day. But I'll give you like a mix of the two. If I'm doing surgery, I typically have 5 to 7 surgeries in the morning. When it comes to surgery, it's either spays, neuters, mass removals, dental procedures, extractions, things like that. So wide variety. And then I see appointments in between those. So right now we're doing all drop-off appointments because of COVID. So people will drop off their pets in the morning, and I'll fit them in between my surgeries. And then after surgery, I'll see all appointments. And that's anything from vaccines with little puppies, which I love, or just like general checkups with like adult pets, or sick animals like vomiting, diarrhea, coughing. You get an occasional emergency here and there, so you kind of never know what you're going to walk into that day. So it is exciting for sure.
Wow, so you get to do all the different types of surgeries and all the different types of kind of regular medicine for all these pets.
Yes, it's definitely really awesome. It really, for surgery, there's a wide range of things you can do with animals. Obviously, I am on the younger side, so still building up my experience, but those older vets out there, I mean, they do crazy things. So it's pretty cool that you get to do such a wide range of things.
What's an example of maybe one of the crazy things you're talking about?
Well, anything from like removing a whole spleen, foreign bodies, which, dogs love to just swallow toys. So you go find it in those intestines, slice open the intestines, take out the toy, close it up. There's emergency surgeries. Called like a GDV, which basically in a dog, the stomach can twist on itself and it can be very scary. So you have to go in there, untwist it, tack it to the side. So those are like high intense situations. So typically you need a little bit more experience, just to make sure you know what you can deal with once you open the patient. You have no idea what's going on in there. So I've been able to like assist in some cases, but I haven't done them on my own just because it takes a lot of experience to get great at that.
That makes sense. So how many different types of jobs are there in your field of work, and can you tell us a little bit about them?
So one great thing about being a veterinarian is there's so many different things you can do. You can work with animals, so on a clinical setting. So I work with dogs and cats and some pocket pets like gerbils and hamsters and stuff. My fiance is an equine veterinarian, so he works with only horses. And then there's farm animal veterinarians, so they only do farm animals. And then you can work for the government for like USDA, and you do a lot of basically diagnosing diseases that came in from other countries that we need to be concerned about, especially with public health. Some diseases can be spread to humans, which we know with COVID. And then there's some in the CDC that you can work for. Then there's always like pharmaceutical companies and food companies for dogs and cats. And like Chewy.com, you can do just random things. They always need veterinarians to help out, like what should they sell, things like that. So really, there's not one single job you can do. People change all the time. I've talked to people that started out in practice and then they worked for the government and they did all these other things. So that's one great thing. So if you ever get like bored of your job, you can do something else.
So it's fairly easy to move around and kind of just try different things and learn new stuff.
Yes, yeah. Everyone loves working with veterinarians. There's just so many different opportunities out there. So it really is easy to switch over. The job market for veterinarians right now is really good.
Oh, and you said your husband just works with horses.
Yes, yeah.
Very
They're
narrow.
pretty specific. Yeah. He does racetrack medicine. So he works with the horses that do races and things like that. So they can get very specific on what you want to do with your job. Or you can be really broad like me, where I see all sorts of things, like a general practitioner, if you were to compare that to human medicine.
What is your favorite type of animal?
A dog.
What type of dog?
I love them. They're so happy all the time. They're very trusting. They're always happy at the vet, besides some that are a little scared. But I feel like they're just always in a good mood. Just like, happy to be alive.
Oh, that sounds nice.
I know. Like, I need some of that pep in my step.
Yeah. Are there many openings in these different types of jobs? And do you think that it's going to be a growing industry in the future?
Yes, so thankfully, as medicine has progressed, we're starting to get some of that advanced medicine that human medicine gets. There's so many different things out there. People are paying for MRIs and CTs on their pets. So really, more people are getting animals. I know definitely the millennial generation, which is my generation, people are getting animals instead of having kids. So there's a lot of animals out there. So there's been a huge growth for veterinarians. There's actually not enough in the US. So you pretty much have your choice of where you want to live, where you want to work. The benefits are great just because they really need you. So definitely a good time to be a veterinarian. I can't see it changing anytime soon, but it's great to be a part of the booming period.
Awesome. And when you were in middle school or high school, did you know this is what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I did. Like I always wanted to be a veterinarian, and then I went through this period in college, like, oh, do I want to do something else? I mean, I've always wanted to do something in healthcare. But as a kid, even a kindergartner, I was like, I love animals. I want to be a veterinarian. So I have always wanted to, but I have a lot of friends that decided last minute, like in college, they're like, should I be a dentist or should I be a vet? And then they just chose it, and they love it. So you don't always have to be a veterinarian or want to be a veterinarian. It's never too late. There's actually someone that was in my vet school or my vet school class. It was like 45. So it was a second career choice. So you can always become a veterinarian whenever you want to.
Awesome. And what would you advise a student for planning for their future to do?
So I would definitely start volunteering at like animal clinics, animal shelters, shadow a veterinarian, or a vet tech, which veterinary technician. So they're basically nurses when you compare that to human medicine. And they do a lot of great things. It's awesome to shadow them, especially if you're trying to decide if you want to be a veterinarian or be a veterinary technician. They do a lot of similar things. Technicians help veterinarians pretty much do their job all day. So they do a lot of the medicine side as well. So it's great to shadow. So that way, number one, you get hours. Because when you're applying for vet school, they basically ask you to list how many hours of experience you have. And then also you find out what specifically you want to do, whether you want to be a veterinarian or go into another field in veterinary medicine in general.
Okay, awesome. Just a couple questions now about kind of the educational requirements for going into this field. I think that's where a lot of students have trouble because it's like, okay, if I have to go to college, what's my degree supposed to be? What are my choices? Who is guiding me through this? But does your job require a community college or technical college or 4-year degree, or what are the paths you can take to become a veterinarian?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I definitely was very stressed going into college because I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to major in because they don't really help you much. But I personally majored in animal science. But I had several friends that just did like a science-based major, so biology or biomedical sciences. To be a veterinarian, you do need a 4-year degree from a college, and then you have 4 years of veterinary school. So in college, there are so many different majors you can choose, but I would definitely research to see which colleges have pre-vet societies and veterinary related degrees, just because if you just do a general science and then there's no animal specific ones, you might feel a little overwhelmed whenever you start veterinary school. Um, but it's definitely worth it. It's a lot of hard work. There's a lot of scholarships and different loans that you can get. So definitely worth it.
Awesome. It's always good to hear there's scholarships and things to help students out as well. But what was the most interesting class you got to take in veterinary school?
Um, well, I wouldn't say it was my favorite, but it was a really interesting class. I had to take meat sciences. And pretty much I had to go through like the slaughter, basically how they go through their day from the beginning of like a live animal to whenever you're making the cuts of meat that you see in the grocery store. So that was really interesting because you got to see really the other side so when you're an animal science major, you can either do like vet med or you go into agriculture science. So people that work for like Tyson and other food companies and stuff, so they take the same degree or have the same degree pretty much when you're going to a 4-year college. So I got to see the other side of it, and it was interesting. There's a lot that goes into what we eat, meat-wise, and it's kind of rewarding to see, the hard work of like farmers and stuff and what they have to do.
And you kind of gave a little bit of an explanation of in college, science kind of backgrounds are a good thing to prepare. In high school, though, are there any specific classes you would say are good for students to kind of do to maybe prepare themselves?
Yeah, so I went to Plano East, and Williams was like my ninth and 10th grade. So there, throughout both of those schools, they offered ag classes, so agriculture classes. They had animal science. They also had a program where you can become a vet tech, a certified one, in school. I wish I did that. I kick myself every day for not doing that. It would really give you a lot of experience. But then they have like horticulture, which is like with plants and stuff. But basically anything any type of ag related things. I did FFA. and raised a pig, if you can imagine. And it was really fun. I learned a lot about animals, and typically those teachers have a lot of agriculture background, so they know a lot about prereqs for vet school and things like that. So that was really helpful to get some type of animal-based knowledge when in high school.
That's awesome. It sounds like you had a lot more fun than I did in high school. I would love to raise a pig. I would have petted it. I would have had so much fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. Pigs are so smart. They're smarter than dogs. Apparently, someone told me that they trained a pig to play a video game. I don't know. But they're hilarious. And you can raise like lambs, rabbits, cows. So it's a cool thing to be a part of.
Well, I will have to add that to the end of this video if I can find another YouTube video with a pig playing.
Yeah.
That would
Yeah.
be fantastic. And so a little bit more about your job is how many days a week do you normally work?
So the great thing about my job, so I work for a corporation versus like a private practice. So for my personal job, there's a lot of wiggle room on how many days a week you want to work. So I personally work 4 days a week, which is really nice. Um, but I don't always get like 3 days off in a row. It's like 3 random days because we're open 7 days a week. So you do work weekends sometimes. I would say most veterinarians probably. But I work with a vet that works 3 days a week, one works 2 days a week, some work 5. So there's a wide range, which is great for long term if you want a family and you're trying to decide, how do I get a work-life balance? So that's really helpful. They've really been pushing work-life balance for veterinarians. So I've really enjoyed working 4 days a week.
And are there a lot of other women in your field?
Yes, so actually back in the day it was mainly men, and then now it's mainly women. Woohoo. But I'd say like my veterinary class, it was like 90% women. So pretty much I work with mainly women. The older generation, there's still a lot of men in the career, but they're starting to retire. So we've really seen a shift in women. So that's been nice, women power. But it's great. There are still men in the profession, of course. I think I don't know why that's decreased, but it's been great.
Awesome. And do you work normally? You said you work in a hospital, so I assume there's lots of people around. But who do you normally work with?
So I work with a ton of people, which is great because I love working with people. Some vets do work by themselves with like one or two other people. So you definitely get a wide range of things. But I personally work with 4 other veterinarians, and then there are several veterinary technicians and veterinary assistants. So the difference between those two is veterinary technicians they have to have an associate's degree. Some do have a bachelor's degree. So 2 years of college versus 4 years of college. And then they do 2 years of technical school. So they're a certified tech, and they get a lot of knowledge through that. So definitely recommend if you want to go through the tech route, I would for sure become a certified tech. It really helps you do your job. They know so much, and they work really well. Really, I couldn't do my job without them, that's for sure. And then there's veterinary assistants, either people that didn't want to pursue education for that, which is totally fine. You still get plenty of experience, or people that are in college currently and don't have like the certification. So they're just labeled as a veterinary assistant. But that can be high schoolers, that could be really anyone. I was a veterinary assistant when I first started. I never was a licensed tech. Wish I did that program in high school. But there's so many different jobs you can have. And then there's a CSC, which is basically a front desk person, and they get a lot of veterinary knowledge as well. And then they just primarily work with people, but they're very, very vital for my job as well. So there's several different opportunities in veterinary medicine, other than just being a veterinarian.
Awesome. And yeah, that's what I'm trying to remind students as well is, it's it's not just, you know, doctor, lawyer, firefighter. Like there's so many jobs that are we may not think about or are part of the system that allows these things to function. And you know, there's so many different opportunities for however a student, however long they want to go to school or whatever they want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, there's a huge need for veterinary technicians. It's been a really booming career. Everyone I've talked to that's a veterinary technician is like trying to find people like, please become a technician. It's really rewarding and we need you.
And a couple of questions just on kind of the finances is what is the salary of somebody who's a veterinarian normally?
So the average starting salary for a small animal veterinarian, I think this year is about 80,000. But there is a wide range. Just depends on what kind of veterinarian you are. If you're a specialist like a surgeon or a cardiologist, I mean, you could make up to like 200,000. If you are a farm animal, sometimes you make I'd say like 60 to 70,000, just because you primarily work in a rural city or setting, so the range of salaries really is wide, depending on if you're specialized versus you know, what specific animals you work with.
And how has your job been affected by the pandemic and changes in the economy?
So, with the pandemic, I feel like I got busier because everyone was quarantined, and veterinarians and veterinary medicine in general is considered essential. So we never shut down, and I feel like more people were home looking at their pets, and they're like, "Are they scratching? Are they coughing?" So they bring them in. So I have really been working my butt off, but it also has affected us financially. So a lot of people are going through a lot. Obviously, people have lost their jobs, so they can't afford as much like medicine and care for their pets. So that's been really rough for everyone involved, of course. So we've been trying to work with trying to make things cheaper for people, try to figure out what specifically they need and not doing extra things if they can't afford it. So definitely your job is affected by economy because a pet is considered property by law. So it really, you have to have the extra funds to be able to treat your pet. So if someone lost their job, then they're probably not going to go get 2 new puppies. But there are still going to be plenty of people with pets, so you'll still have a job. But it definitely is affected by economy, just because, you know, people have to prioritize whenever they don't have as much money, especially with the pandemic. I mean, it's affected so many people. So.
Very true. Um, for our last question, what advice do you have for a middle schooler or high schooler who is thinking that maybe they'd like to go into this career or pursue one of these areas?
So I would definitely recommend getting out there and volunteering immediately. I started in middle school, maybe even younger, volunteering at an animal shelter, and that was awesome. And then I eventually met a veterinarian that was like, "Sure, come hang out here." And I was like 14 or 15, so you don't have to be like job aged. They definitely, veterinarians want you to learn about their career and get experience. So you can do that. You can start working in a vet clinic once you're 16. So there's so many different jobs. You can be a kennel assistant, which basically you help like clean up with animals, hold animals for exams and stuff. So you can start getting a job really young, or just volunteering. And if you don't know what species you like best, definitely volunteer everywhere. I worked with birds and snakes at one point, and I realized quickly that was not my thing. But you can work at a zoo, or you can volunteer at a zoo, or volunteer at a farm. So there's so many different job opportunities and just shadowing opportunities that you can start doing as really, really young age, or even just as a job through high school, or if you want to do that after high school instead of going to college. There's just so many different things out there, and I definitely would get as much experience as you can.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And to all of our students, don't forget to do your survey. It will be at the end of this video, as well as in the bio for the video. Once you do 80% of your surveys for the different careers that correspond with the lessons, then you will be able to receive your certificate and put this course on your CV. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I hope you'll have a great rest of your day and stay healthy out there.